Good evening, parents, guardians, staff, students, and panelists. Thank you for joining us tonight. I am Kate Heald, and I am the new College and Career Advisor at BCC High School. While I am new to BCC, I am not new to this position, and I look forward to meeting each and every one of you and help you with your post-high school plans. Before we begin with the introductions, I would like to start with a couple of housekeeping items. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the BCC College and Career Center site located on the counseling page of our website. Our Q&A feature will be monitored and our counseling staff will answer the questions as they can. Many of your questions will be answered by the reps during their presentations, but we will have a few minutes at the end for additional questions. In addition, you will be provided with the emails of all of the reps at the end of the presentation. I would also like to thank our amazing College and Career Advisory Committee for all of their support with these events. Now, I would like to introduce you to our principal, Dr. Shelton Mooney.
Good evening, everyone, and I'd like to welcome you and reiterate what Ms. Heald said. This is going to be an exciting night if you have not gone through this before at BCC. I was sharing with several of the people on the call earlier that I sat through this last year thinking about this process through the eyes of a parent for my daughter, who's a senior this year. And today I actually came across the notes I had written, and I took pages and pages of notes of things to say. Did Anna know this? Did Anna do this? Is she going to be ready for this? So I encourage you to do that. Take lots of notes today. You'll look back at them and you'll say, I'm really glad I did that. I do want to reiterate something and really give a lot of kind of praise to Ms. Heald for pulling this off. It would be enough of a challenge to pull off something that's been a staple at BCC for many years now, just coming into the position new, but doing it in a virtual setting and making it work the way it's set up to work tonight is really impressive. So Ms. Heald, I do appreciate your work, and I look forward to sitting through this tonight and hearing more and learning more. But I don't want to stand in the way of everybody else. So tonight we're going to hear from 7 different types of colleges and universities, and you're going to get the wide range of experiences and hear and think about what might be best for you and your child as you go through that process. Because as a parent of 4 children, I can tell you that I know that the same thing is not the right thing for each of them. So there is a type of college amongst the group that's presenting tonight that is right for your child. So I encourage you to listen with an open mind and wish you the best of luck as you make this choice and start this journey. So Ms. Heald, I'm going to turn it back over to you and enjoy the rest of the evening, everyone.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mooney. Now for our panelists, admissions reps. An admissions representative is an individual who works for a college, university, or school to help students and potential students get started in their studies. Just as their name suggests, their job is to admit students. Unfortunately, there just isn't enough room for all qualified students to be admitted to their institutions, so they have to be the gatekeepers. Tonight, you will learn more about the admissions process and what goes on behind the scenes. Now, the admissions representatives will introduce themselves and tell you what model of college or university they are representing. Panelists, once you have introduced yourself, please share a fun fact about yourself or your school before we move on to the next panelist. We will begin with Jake Howard from the University of British Columbia.
Thanks, Kate. So as mentioned, my name is Jake Howard, and I'm with the University of British Columbia. So I'll be representing the international segment, the Canadian segment this evening. Oh, I didn't do my homework about a fun fact. So I'm going to go where I always go, and that's towards food. And I think that UBC has some of the best, not cafeteria, but offshoot dining at any Canadian university. But Great Dane has the best scones you will ever come across. They are fantastic. So that's my fun fact.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Alexandra Gonzalez. I am an admissions representative at Montgomery College, and I'll be representing community colleges. Fun fact about MC, our mascot is a raptor.
Hello, everyone. My name is Aries Reed. I represent Morgan State University and am representing historically Black colleges and universities. One of the biggest news reports that we've had, maybe like in the last few weeks. It's one of our largest donations that we received. It's the second largest in the state of Maryland with all of our universities and colleges. $40 million donation, one-time donation that was given. So that means that there's extra funding for you students.
Mhm.
Hi everyone, my name is Carly Valenzuela and I'm representing Haverford College today. We're a liberal arts college and let's see, we are an arboretum, so every tree on our campus is labeled and there's an 8-to-1 tree to student ratio.
I think I'm up next. Good evening, everyone. My name is Calvin Wise. I'm the Director of Recruitment at Johns Hopkins University. The fun fact that I'll share is JHU was actually the first research institution established in the United States, and we've led the nation in research spending for almost the past 40 years. Glad to be here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lizzie Leonard. I'm an Assistant Director of Admissions at Northeastern University in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm here representing a large private university that has sort of a focus on getting work experience, so co-op internship experience before graduating. And I actually didn't know some of those fun facts that were on the slides about Northeastern, so I need to get better at my job. But one thing that I love to talk about is that there's a really intricate tunnel system under Northeastern's campus, which took me a long time to discover, but has been a lifesaver in the Boston winters. So you can get to almost the entire campus without going outdoors, which is amazing.
Hello, my name is Brett Hoffman. I'm from the Penn State Admissions Office, and I'm representing large research universities. And a fun fact, a mechanical engineer from Penn State that was working with the Navy in 1943 invented the Slinky. Parents may know Slinkies. Students, you may not know what a Slinky is, but think about this: Toy Story and Slink the dog. So, thank you.
All right, that's great. So we have a couple of rounds, and round one, we're gonna go in the same order again. So reps, please share insights with students and parents about any unique aspects of the college or university you are representing, using the questions I sent you sort of as a guide, but just give us as much information about the type of university you represent, and if you want to talk about your own school, that's fine. Again, we'll start with Jake Howard.
Thank you. So being charged with looking after Canada as a whole, I didn't want to just talk about the University of British Columbia because we are such a large nation. So there's over 500,000 international students are choosing Canada as their study destination every single year. So it really is a popular destination for many students from around the world to come and study. When you study within Canada, you really are investing in your future, as Canadian universities and our college diplomas are recognized worldwide, including back there in the United States. So they're very portable degrees that you're going to get from Canada as well. I almost said UB, definitely from UBC. And yet within Canada, we still have some of the lowest tuitions out of any English speaking country in terms of post-secondary education. So it's a really great value for money as well. In Canada, you can also apply your Fafsa funding. So any of the loan portions, unfortunately not the grants, so it's have to stay in the US, but most Canadian universities will accept the Fafsa funding, and most will also have really robust international student scholarship programs. So money that is set aside specifically for our international students. And if any of you are sneaky Canadians that are living over there in the United States, do keep in mind that you would also pay the domestic tuition rates should you choose to come and study within Canada. There's over 96 public universities within Canada, and they offer about 15,000 different study programs, and they're really flexible. So it's up for you to decide what you want to study and how to build out your degree to making sure that you're tailoring it so that it's really unique to you. We also focus on making sure that our students are getting that valuable work experience. And they can do that in a variety of ways, from work programs where they can work on campus in a multitude of departments. Co-op placements is something that's really common within Canada. And then Canada also offers a 3-year postgrad work permit. So if you can come and study at any Canadian university and earn your undergraduate degree, you can stay and work in the country for up to 3 years upon graduation, basically no questions asked. We're also very serious about supporting our students. So while we do tend to be larger in size than a lot of American universities, we are larger sort of public schools here in Canada. There's lots of great services to make sure that you're going to be successful both in and outside of the classroom. The biggest thing is going to be putting your hand up and asking for that assistance, saying, hey, I'm going to need a little bit of help with X. But there's lots of really great supports and able to help our students. And as international students, there's some niche programs that are just for you as well. In Canada, we are proud to say that that warm and friendly stereotype is true. So when you do come to Canada, you're going to really find a welcoming country that is uniquely Canadian and embraces a variety of different things. So from our urban centers to our small towns, it really is one of the safest countries for international students. And it's a place where a lot of them are really feeling at home. They're super vibrant in terms of our campus or our student life and on-campus activities. We all have varsity sports, student unions, tons of groups and clubs, and even some Greek life as well. And I'll stop there and pass it along.
Thank you.
Ms. Howard, a real quick question. There was a question about whether UBC specifically was more of a commuter school, or if you can talk about campus life at UBC specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. I can talk about campus life at UBC specifically. UBC has Canada's largest housing program. So we have the most number of beds on campus out of any Canadian university. There is about just under 13,000 beds on our Vancouver campus. There is 45,000 undergraduate students. So if you do that math, it is not a commuter school in terms of its feel, because there is a large community that is living on our campus. However, more than 50% of our students do commute to campus every single day when campus is open and running, because we are, of course, virtually learning this year.
All right, good evening. Once again, I'm representing community colleges, and there are a number of different educational pathways that community colleges offer. For example, at the institution where I work, Montgomery College, we have a non-credit option for those students who may be looking to upgrade their skills, earn an industry certification, and then transition into the workforce. We also have credit options, which allow students to gain certificates, associate's degrees, and then they can also complete transfer programs that allow them to transition to four-year colleges and universities. Now, one of the things that community colleges offer is flexibility, accessibility, and also we pride ourselves in being affordable as well. So I like to say that there is something for everyone at Montgomery College or at any community college. And so whether we are an open admissions institution, and whether you are ready to take college level courses, or whether you need to take developmental courses, you can enroll at Montgomery College or a community college and start your pathway to gaining a degree or a certificate, or as I said, taking non-credit courses. Now for the non-credit side of the college, many of our courses can last a few days to a couple weeks, up to a full semester. Certificate programs typically require up to 30 credits. And then if you're looking to obtain an associate's degree, which if you are a full-time student, can typically be obtained in 2 years, you're looking at an average of about 60 credits. And then once again, we do have transfer programs as well. So our institution has over 100 different degree programs. We also have 9 intercollegiate sports programs. We also have a number of leadership opportunities for our students, as well as support services. We do have 3 campuses, all in Montgomery County, starting from Tacoma Park, Silver Spring, Rockville, and Germantown. And at all 3 of those campuses, we do offer the ability for students to participate in the Office of Student Life, which offers leadership opportunities through student government, clubs and organizations, as well as service learning opportunities and honor societies such as Phi Theta Kappa. In addition to that, whether you are looking to take classes that are a bit more rigorous, we do have honors programs that also provide students with the ability to obtain academic excellence, scholarship, and then also transition to some of the most top tier colleges and universities in the nation and abroad. So there's something for everyone at a community college, and you are able, whether you're looking to transition directly into the workplace or you're looking to complete your first 2 years of your degree and then transition to a 4-year university. Thank you.
Ms. Gonzalez, real quick, could you just talk a little bit about the articulation agreements that you have with other area colleges?
Absolutely. We have partnerships with a number of different colleges, University of Maryland, College Park, University of Maryland, Baltimore County, University of Baltimore, Shepherd University, which is actually in West Virginia, as well as University of Maryland Global Campus and University of Maryland Eastern Shore. And we also have partnerships with University of Maryland Shady Grove. Now those partnerships provide a number of different benefits to our students and also have a number of different requirements. Some of the benefits would include automatic acceptance into those universities. They could include scholarships. They could also include the ability to be dually enrolled and take classes both at Montgomery College as well as those institutions. Now, in addition to that, we also have transfer agreements with over 40 different colleges and universities across the nation, which offer a number of different benefits as well, from fee waivers for the application process once you're ready to transfer to a four-year college, as well as the ability to receive transfer scholarships.
All right, so my name is Aries Reed once again, and I am representing Morgan State University on behalf of all HBCUs for this particular panel. The first thing that I would love to make very clear is that there are over 100 historically Black colleges and universities in the United States, and we are all completely different. It gave me an idea we can host a panel just like this that would range from large historically Black colleges to small, to private, to public, to specialized professional schools. There's a variety. So there's something just for anyone who has any particular interest. Some of the history behind historically Black colleges. There is no particular school that is titled historically Black college. This is an umbrella that we sit under. That is more so of a more recent term. But you know, at one point in this country where racism was very much so prevalent, there was no opportunity for African Americans to receive any form of higher education. So there were schools that were founded by freed slaves, by white people who had the desire to have African Americans educated. Now, one of the best things is to make very clear, HBCUs have never been all Black schools or only for Black students, but they have been the only schools from the inception to educate African American students. Here today, with over 100 HBCUs around the country, you will see a variety of everyone. What keeps students continuing to come back, the initial need is not there. Of course, we can go to any school in the country, and that is because of the excellence that was produced through HBCUs. But the thing that keeps letting students come back, and that's from every religion, every background, is there's a few things that make HBCUs desirable. One, we all are different, but there are one or two things that are very much so the same. There is this atmosphere, this nurturing environment that is there for the students. There is this mindset of having a holistic development at the school. We're not just interested in students coming and us graduating them. Morgan State University is one of the historically Black colleges, and we've been around for over 150 years. So we have this reputation of performing, of getting students prepared for the world, but we are very much so interested in that holistic development. We want to see you grow in all areas. There is this mindset that happens where what's in the culture is this nurturing aspect that allows you to develop this sense of confidence to where no matter who you are, by the time that you graduate, if you didn't have it already, that you will be able to walk into any room and be able to perform in any setting, not just because you've gained that rich education, but because you have more of an understanding of where you stand, how you want to make an impact in the world. Those are questions that we ask the student. Who is it that you're seeking to become, and how do you want to impact the world? So HBCUs are just like any other school that you're interested in, except majority of the HBCUs, except for maybe one or two, the minorities are the majority. So what would be considered minorities here in typically any other setting are the majorities on campus. So that's your Black students, which is a variety all around the world. That's your brown students. And that's any type of student that's there, you have a place. So that's one of the great things about historically Black colleges that we have. It is just not a school that is only for one particular type of student. As I mentioned before, it's going to range. You have your Division I programs, your Division II programs when it comes to athletics. You have all of your universities that have, your particular branches of military interested in ROTC. So it's kind of difficult to really talk broadly about historically Black colleges because they're so different. But one example that I want to kind of give you is Morgan State University. So here in the state of Maryland, where you're located, there are 4 historically Black colleges. Morgan State University is the largest of the 4. And it's going to range. There are no HBCUs on the West Coast. There's only a handful in the Midwest, and we're going to range from Morgan State, so the Maryland area. You have some in Pennsylvania, some in Delaware, and then the rest of us are down south. Okay, so there's a variety of opportunities there, but the main thing I want you all to walk away with is that this university is gives you the same opportunities that any other university does provide. If you are a student who is interested in receiving a quality education, Morgan State is a research 2 institution, so quality education, but then it's like an educational experience that adds a little bit of flavor to your educational experience. The last thing that I want to state on that is, if you're interested in going to a school where you grow an appreciation for others and their differences and not just a tolerance, then thinking about historically Black college is definitely an opportunity for you. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Once again, my name is Carly Valenzuela, and I'm representing Haverford College. Haverford College is a liberal arts college located just outside of Philadelphia. Liberal arts colleges come in a lot of different shapes and sizes and flavors. And so if you're thinking about liberal arts colleges, definitely check out how they may vary from one to the next. One of the things that you'll find liberal arts colleges have in common is that they tend to have very small classes, small student to teacher ratios. They also put a lot of emphasis on undergraduate research. I'd also say that liberal arts colleges, they are also incredible places to study STEM. So a lot of times students hear liberal arts and they may think that's more of an arts and humanities place. But if you're thinking about STEM, definitely check out liberal arts colleges too, because all of the research opportunities are for the undergraduates, not for PhD students or master's students. They're really focusing on that undergraduate experience. Some things that separate Haverford from other liberal arts colleges would definitely be our location being so close to Philadelphia. We also are part of a consortium of schools, so you can take classes at Bryn Mawr College, an all-women's liberal arts college, or Swarthmore College, a co-ed liberal arts college. Those 3 schools were founded by Quakers, and Haverford College really stays true to its Quaker identity in several ways. For example, we're really trying to give our students every opportunity to become ethical leaders. All of our decision-making on campus happens in the form of committees, and there must always be the student voice present on that committee. That's because Quakers really value the voices of each individual and believes that you should play a role in the community that you're living and learning in. And then another example of kind of what makes Haverford distinctive would be the fact that all of our exams are unproctored and you can self-schedule your exams. So I don't think there's another place where you're going to be more trusted. We've always believed that our students have the best of intentions and that they should create the learning environment that's going to best help them thrive, and that they shouldn't be monitored and so on. So those are some things that make Haverford different. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to email me.
All right, and again, my name is Calvin Wise. I am representing Johns Hopkins University in the type of institution that I'm here to represent are highly selective universities and colleges. I want to first and foremost say that I always like to take the opportunity to say that the vast majority of colleges out there say yes more than they say no. The last statistic that I saw is the average admit rate across all colleges in our country is about 66%. There are only about 100 colleges that have an admit rate below 30%. There are a lot of different definitions of highly selective. It's kind of this umbrella term that is used. Some use 30% or less than 15%. There's a popular guide, the Barron's Guide, that breaks colleges up along selectivity levels and takes some different things into consideration. But even with the Barron's Guide, there are about 80 colleges. So you have to think 80, 100 out of the 4,000 colleges and universities out there. So I always like to dispel that myth. There are a lot of really great, that's the other thing I like to say, admissions, the admit rate of a college is not an indicator of is this school a good school, right? There are a lot of great schools out there. They're not as selective as some others. That being said, there are a couple of things I like to mention when it comes to selective institutions, mainly around their admissions process. And I know that we might get into more of this later on, but most selective institutions practice what is called a holistic review process. And basically what that means is that they're gonna look at an application, look at a student a little bit more additionally than just the numbers, whether that's a GPA or standardized testing. They're going to look at all different components of that student in regards to their transcript, their grades, absolutely, but also their extracurricular involvement, essays, and letters of recommendation. Just to quickly go over the different buckets of selective admissions, this is how we talk about it at Hopkins, and I know a lot of selective institutions have similar types of categories as they're reviewing students. I just want to kind of hit some of the misconceptions that students oftentimes have when we're looking at these different pieces. First and foremost is the academics. Most institutions are going to start looking at students' academics. I think oftentimes students think that we're prioritizing a GPA, a number, how many advanced classes or APs, and it's less about what that number is and more about what it represents. We have a lot of conversations. We're actually in part of committee this week, and our conversations as we're thinking about students are more along the lines of what was their approach to learning? How were they in the classroom? How did they react when they came across material that was interesting to them? How are they following their intellectual interests and passions, right? It's more than just the grade that you got. It's about how you got that, where your interests lie. Are you excelling and doing well in those courses? What your teachers are saying about you and how you interact with other students in the classroom. That's academic character. We think about impact. So what type of impact are you making in your community? Whether that is within your school community, your home, maybe you're working, maybe you may have some type of religious affiliation within your place of worship. We think about how students are making an impact within their community, and that's going to look different depending on who you are. And the last piece is university match. Unfortunately, at selective institutions, we have more competitive students than we do have spaces. And we are thinking about building a learning community, a cohort of students. We wouldn't do our student body any justice if it was a homogenous group of students that we enrolled each year. And so we're thinking about what things students are bringing and how that's going to collectively add to the incoming class. I'll talk about to supplement later on, but the supplemental essay is one of the ways that you can usually articulate your match for the institution. And the last thing I'll leave you with is that piece. I think that in selective admissions, one of the more important pieces is how you tell your story and what's your narrative. How are you talking about your academic character, how you've made an impact, why you're a good fit for an institution. Those are the things that typically for definitely seniors who are applying and juniors, where the focus should be. When we enroll a class, as I mentioned, we need to have a well-rounded class, but not every student is well-rounded in the traditional sense where they played a sport, played an instrument, and did community service. At least that's what I thought you need to do to be well-rounded and get into college. There are students who are doing all those things and enjoy all those things, and that's great. But if you're a student who may have a very specific interest and has spent a lot of time doing that, that is okay. There is a place for you at institutions like ours, but it's all about how you tell that story and articulate that to the institution. So again, I tried to break down highly selective institutions in a nutshell. The last thing I'll say as well, regarding highly selective institutions is related to financial aid, need-based financial aid. I will say that some of the more highly selective institutions in the country, oftentimes, even though their sticker price is pretty high, have the most generous need-based financial aid packages, and there are a small handful of institutions that offer no loan packages like Hopkins, where you're not packaged students with loans. So we have a dedication to affordability. We're not the only type of institutions that do that, but something else I wanted to highlight as you're thinking about selective institutions. Thank you.
Thanks, Calvin. So I'm going to talk briefly about getting work experience in college. So sort of focusing on institutions that have really strong co-op or internship programs throughout your college experience. So as you're sort of looking at colleges, thinking about navigating this whole process, college can be incredibly expensive, which is no secret to anyone on this call. And so I think one sort of way to end up balancing out the potential cost of attending college is thinking about what sort of comes after college, which is so far down the road for everyone on this call that all the students on this call, that I understand it feels kind of overwhelming to be sort of thinking about the step after the next step. But if you're thinking about return on investment in terms of how much money you're going to spend in college, one sort of way to think about that is, what are the outcomes that I'm going to have after graduating? What is the likelihood that I'll have a successful career after graduating, be able to sort of put whatever I've studied to the test, and potentially be paying off the amount of money that I had to spend to go to college in the first place. So confronted with those harsh realities, it is often very appealing for a lot of students to be getting that work experience when they're in college, both to be sort of making money when you're in college, getting that work experience, and being able to sort of say that you feel like you know what your degree is preparing you for after graduating. So as you're sort of looking at different colleges, many schools have really strong internship programs, which is a word that we're all pretty familiar with, but allowing students to get some solid work experience during the summer, or maybe during some time between semesters, or maybe doing some sort of part-time work experience throughout your semester of coursework. So a great question to be asking schools is, what kind of local internships will be available for me when I'm attending this college? Sort of a step, not above, but above in terms of time commitment of the internship program is a co-op program, which there are some schools, mainly schools in the United States, that have really strong co-op programs. Northeastern is one of them. Some others are Drexel and University of Cincinnati are two other schools that have really robust co-op programs where students are actually required to spend a full semester of their time in college, not taking classes at all, but just getting full-time work experience. So for schools that have co-op programs, you'll graduate with really significant work experience during time periods where you're not sort of balancing and juggling that and coursework. You're actually taking that time to do full-time work experience. So 9 to 5, being at work, being an entry-level employee for an organization, a company, a nonprofit, a law firm, whatever it is you want to do that semester, meant to be kind of an immersive experience for a short period of time. So if you know that you want to get work experience in college, looking for schools that have a strong co-op program or strong internship connections is a really good way to sort of ensure that. And then two, just sort of short things I want to say about that is that I mentioned the return on investment, but I think it's so, when you graduate from college and you take your first job, ideally you love it. Ideally, everyone loves every job they've ever had after they graduate from their university or college. But as I'm seeing my colleagues smile on this call, we all know that that's not reality. And there are often positions that we end up in that are not ideal for us. And I think being able to have that time in college to have sort of like a bite-sized, very risk-free opportunity to test out what you're studying and see if you like the job that your major is hypothetically preparing you for can be really, really useful for a lot of students. So again, having schools that have a really strong framework for that is really appealing for a lot of people. And then the last thing I'll say is that it is truly my job, actually very literally my job, to talk about co-op programs and make them sound really appealing. And I know that they appeal to a lot of students, but I also know that they don't appeal to a lot of students. I think having a really strong emphasis on coming and going from campus and getting professional work experience when you're in college is not necessarily the right fit for every single student. And so I think that's an important thing to be sort of thinking about, especially, thinking about like a liberal arts education where your time in college is really focused on like a small community in one place. Like having a co-op experience where you're kind of coming and going can be a very different experience. So that's not to say one is better, one is worse, but it's definitely something to be sort of thinking about. Not every student is really ready to take on the independence and sort of adulthood responsibilities of looking for a full-time job in their first or second year of college. Doesn't mean you're not ready for it, and it doesn't mean you can't do it, but there are some students who don't really want that during college. And so sort of thinking about what that actually looks like throughout your time in college, how important is it for you to be getting that work experience, and what does that look like for you on a day-to-day basis, I think can really inform whether whether that's sort of an important tenet for you when you are looking at schools.
Good, thanks, Lizzie. I'm Brett again from Penn State, and I'm going to represent the large research universities again too. And to echo some of the things that Lizzie said, this is not a talk about one thing is better than the other. We're all we're all here to help you find the best fit and what that is. And so we definitely know in our case, there are a lot of students that walk around our campus that say, wow, this is a great place. And there's a lot of people that walk around our campus and say, wow, this is way too big. So there's, distinct things that happen with us too. So what is categorized as being a large university? So the Carnegie Foundation tells us that 4-year schools that have 10,000 students or more are considered large schools. When you have 10,000 students or more at those schools, you have a lot of large schools in the US, although not a classification, but the extremely large, the top 10 largest schools in the US, like UBC, have over 45,000 students. Penn State is one of those largest schools. We are the largest East Coast school in the US. It comes through. And then what makes you a research university? Well, it's as simple as that, as one of your main mission points is that research is on the agenda. And everything we do in a place like Penn State, every undergraduate major that we offer offers a research component. We don't offer a major unless we're doing research in it as well. That comes through. So that goes through along with that research component. Usually schools also go through the PhD level. So undergraduate, bachelor's degree, master's, PhD level that might come through too. So what are some of the unique features of a large research school? Well, there's just a lot of opportunities, a lot of different access points that has to too. So one of those things that you hit on is career initiatives with that too. So a place like Penn State, at any given time, we have 30,000 jobs posted with us each year. When we're in person, we have 13,000 interviews on campus each year. So employers come to us a lot of times to recruit students as well. And this also in this job kind of world too, that includes the internship world as well. And we offer not the same as Northeastern or Drexel, but we offer a few co-ops here and there too. That kind of comes out too. So, and then you get to the majors. Place like Penn State, 275 different majors, 180 different minors, and then the ability to have in unique different areas, double majors, minors, all kinds of crazy combinations, are some of those things that you'll get at a large school with that too. And then, of course, then if you're in a major and you decide to change your major, there are some options to change majors. There are not all majors, but you'll have a large selection of things to look at in the environment too. So. Generally, how does advising work in a large universities? Well, typically you have a unit that might be something like undergraduate studies, which we call it at Penn State, some kind of precursor to all the majors, where either you can start out really as an undecided student or be part of an academic college right off the bat. But the framework for advising is this, the knowledge that most students aren't familiar with 275 different majors coming out of high school. And part of what we do is to help them learn about, at least in their field, if they're looking at engineering, what are the 40 different disciplines in engineering out there? Which one is really going to be the right one for you? Yes, we all know that everyone wants mechanical engineering and chemical engineering, aerospace, a select few, but what are the other 37? So that's what advising is about at big schools, is kind of really informing students, especially the first 2 years, about all the different options that are out there too. You typically large study abroad options in-house at a large school too. Penn State offers like 300 different programs internationally that comes through. It's my timer that goes through, so it runs up. So just beyond that too, just large schools that come through. We do have a large application base, and with that too, we have some of the large. I think Penn State may have the largest admission staff in the country. We have about 200 people in our admissions staff alone. So thank you.
All right, thank you all. That's great. Okay, so now we'll move on to round 2, which is an in-depth look at the college admissions process. Each of our panelists was sent a list of questions addressing different aspects of college admissions, not necessarily for their type of school. Panelists, please let us know what your topic is and answer your questions to the best of your ability. And we'll start again with Jake, please.
Thanks again. So again, topic, Canadian universities and colleges and the admissions process and requirements. It's a tough one because similar to the US, and I know my colleagues here would agree, it depends. It's going to depend so much on the institution that you're applying to, as well as the program within that institution that you're applying to, in terms of what that school is really looking for. And so there are some commonalities that I'll try and touch point as we go through, but just keep in mind that you always really want to do your research, not only on the university or college that you're interested in, but on the program or the faculty that you're interested in studying in within as well. So within Canada, for the most part, you're going to find that there might be a handful that are on the Common App or the Coalition app, but primarily we're going to have our own unique school application systems. And these are going to be online applications. So you'll have to go to the school's website and apply directly there. So at UBC, the only place you can find our application is at the you.ubc.ca website. And then from there, those applications will sort of prompt you through as you move along. In most cases, the most important thing for any Canadian university is going to be your in-class grades. So it doesn't matter if you're doing the American curriculum, the IB curriculum, French bac, something else. It is going to be your in-class grades or your predicted grades that are going to be the most important piece when we're evaluating students. In fact, for most universities within Canada, it's the only thing they look at. There's about, I want to say more than a handful, probably like 50% that traditionally have asked for the SAT or ACT results. You know, UBC usually does Toronto, McGill, Waterloo. This year, due to COVID, we're obviously not going to be asking for that requirement. And that's only if you're doing the American curriculum. If you were doing the full IB diploma, we never would have asked for those test scores to start with as well. So we've always been a little bit flexible in Canada around those sort of test exams. And then in Canada, it's even less likely to be asked to write anything on an application. So it's very uncommon for you to have to fill out an essay or any sort of written piece on an application. UBC, we like to be different. We are the only school in Canada that has a full holistic review for all applications at the undergraduate level. So we do ask students to fill out a couple of different paragraph style questions as you move through the application. But for the most part with Canadian universities, they're not going to ask anything, or if they do, it's going to be for select programs. So maybe the business program wants you to do a little interview type piece. A fine arts program might ask for some additional sort of supplemental portfolio information. But again, it's always going to depend a little bit school to school and program to program. That's going to be the biggest thing. In Canada, we're also quite generous when it comes to first year credit. So again, if you're doing IB, AP, A-levels, French bac, there's always going to be the opportunity to earn some first year credit as you're going through your studies. So you want to make sure that you're finishing strong. Don't just get into your university and then decide that you're done. You want to make sure that you're working hard all the way through your senior year because there is going to be that opportunity to earn some of that first year credit, which means that you don't have to take those classes once you come to university. So not only is your course load greatly reduced and maybe your stress loads greatly reduced, but so is the financial aspect. Because if you aren't taking those courses, you don't have to pay to take those courses. And when you're paying international tuition fees, that might be something that you definitely want to consider taking into consideration as well. Counselors love us when you apply to Canadian universities because it means that they don't have to write recommendation letters. The only difference on that might be is if you're applying for some of those more robust scholarships, there might be an application process where reference letters are needing to be included. But for the most case, we don't look at reference letters. We don't want reference letters. Please don't send them. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention that I was asked is around the study permit. So yes, you will be an international student. Even as an American, if you come and study within Canada, you will be an international student. That does mean that you need to apply for a study permit. That's the term that we use. It's all done online on the cic.gc.ca website, which is a Canadian government website. So I'm going to apologize in advance for that. You apply for your study permit once the spring hits and you have an offer of admissions from a Canadian university. So you need an offer of admissions from a Canadian university. You need a valid passport, preferably for the 4 years that you're going to be in school, and you need proof of finances that you can support yourself for the upcoming academic year. The study permit is also your work permit. So as an international student in Canada, you can work both on and off campus during your academic years. Thank you.
Howard, we had a real quick question about the
Sure.
Canadian university applications. Do you get conditional offers based on your IB exams?
It's going to depend a little bit school to school. For UBC, they're semi-conditional. We understand that if you drop the UK tends to be very firm on their conditions. If you drop a point, you might be gone. Canada's a little bit more generous in that regard. So we understand that the IB grades or final exams are really challenging. So if you drop a point or two in a course or two, that's going to be okay. However, if you were predicted, say, 38 and you show up at the start of school with 32, that's going to be a problem for us.
All right. Well, at Montgomery College, we have what we call open admissions. So what that means is when you apply, we do not require standardized test scores such as the SAT or ACT, no teacher recommendations, there are no essays. So the application typically is biographical information about the academic program that you're interested, et cetera. Now, although we do not require standardized test scores, because we're open admissions, we understand that students start at different levels and they also have different academic interests. So we do require students to determine placement. And there's several ways that you can do that. So once you've applied to the school, you are going to be required to determine placement. Now with our partnership through MCPS, there are specific courses that if you've taken those courses in high school and you receive a grade of a B or better, once you apply to Montgomery College, MCPS will transfer that information over to us and let us know that you are able to take college level courses, which would make you exempt from taking our placement exams. We also, your GPA, your unweighted GPA is a way that you can place into college level courses. Because of the coronavirus pandemic, the GPA has now changed. The minimal GPA has changed to a 2.75. Now, although we do not require standardized test scores, if you have taken them, if you've taken an SAT or ACT, and you have the minimal test scores to take college level courses, then you can send those over to MC as well. And the minimum is a 530 for math and a 500 for English. In addition to that, and there are a number of different ways that you can place into college level courses, in addition to the ones that I'm mentioning this evening, but we also have our own placement exams, which due to the pandemic, you can take remotely online. Because we are open admissions, we may have students that place into college level courses, but we may also have students who need a little bit more help and place into developmental courses. And those courses are designed to assist students to develop the skills needed to take college level English and math and et cetera. In addition to that, as stated earlier, we do have continuing education and workforce development options or non-credit options for students as well. So let me refer back to some of the questions that were asked of me. Some of the questions, well, the first one, will it be harder to get into a four-year university as a transfer student? Ultimately, the success, successfully transferring to a four-year college or university is going to really depend on the academic success of the student, okay? So community colleges provide the ability for students who perhaps need to strengthen their academic resume, provides them the ability to take courses at Montgomery College and then transfer to a four-year university. Now, one of the things that we also offer are our honors programs. So again, for those students who are looking for to take rigorous or challenging programs, we have a number of different programs that provide full scholarships for tuition and fees at the in-county rate, and they are a lot more rigorous. They provide internship opportunities, opportunities for travel, and again, a lot of those students have 100% transfer rate to institutions such as Georgetown University, George Washington University, University of Maryland, MIT, you name it. So again, there's a place for everyone at Montgomery College. Some of the other questions that were asked of me, let's see. What is University of Maryland Shady Groves? Now, Montgomery County residents have a really unique opportunity to complete a four-year degree within the county. So many students will begin their four-year degree program at Montgomery College, complete the first 2 years, and then transition over to University of Maryland Shady Grove, which is a campus within Montgomery County that houses 9 different University of Maryland public institutions and allows you to complete the latter part of your degree. And they also have graduate degree opportunities there as well. Now, does Montgomery College have transfer partnerships? I did cover that earlier. Again, we have a number of transfer partnerships that allow you seamless transition over to four-year universities, as well as agreements that allow you to have benefits such as tuition fee waivers and so on. Now, can you receive a degree from Montgomery College? Absolutely. As I stated earlier, you can receive an associate's degree from Montgomery College. So I believe those were most of the questions that were asked of me. Thank you very much.
Ms.
Gonzalez, real quick, sorry.
Sorry, let me just ask her one quick question because I think I added this after I sent that to you. Can you talk a little, just touch on the social aspects because students are commuting. Do you provide opportunities for students to get together, you know, outside of class? Are there, you know, a lot of social events just so they can get that community feel and college feel?
Absolutely, and I've been, I've been able to work on all three of our campuses, and each one has a different flavor. Tacoma Park is the campus that is closest to DC. It's in the middle of downtown Silver Spring and Tacoma Park. There's more of an urban vibe, an urban flavor. A lot of times you'll see students congregating in the Student Services Building. There are a number of different clubs and organizations, so there's definitely a lot of opportunity for students to get together, to network, and to just get the vibe of the community and just have a good time. The Rockville campus is our largest campus. There are a number of different programs there. It is also a very fun campus. And one of the things that I loved about working there is that my office actually was faced the court, the yard, and many times students would come out, there would be a DJ, students would come out and dance and have a great time. So the campuses are very lively. Germantown is where I work now. Also a great vibe, a number of student organizations, clubs, leadership opportunities. As I mentioned, we also have 9 intercollegiate sports programs that are competitive as well as intramural sports. Those would include basketball, track and field, volleyball, baseball. So there's ample opportunity for students to definitely network, get together. One of the things that we're also very proud of that we launched a few years ago is our Shaw Center, which is a center for health and wellness. And so there's an opportunity there for students to receive resources through the community for wellness, mental health, as well as we have something called the Mobile Market, which provides free food to students in the community on a monthly basis. And that's something that we're very proud of as well. So we not only do we offer services to our students, but to the community overall.
Real quick, do you have any agreements with Canadian schools? And as a follow-up, Ms. Howard, do Canadian schools accept students from community colleges?
That's a great question. Now, I don't know whether we specifically have any agreements with any Canadian schools because we do have over 40 different agreements with 40 different colleges and universities. But I will tell you that our students transfer everywhere. Some of the top schools that we transfer to obviously are the Maryland public schools, but we have students that transfer everywhere. So it's very possible that we do.
We do have a lot of students who apply to study at universities coming from community colleges in the United States. So it's definitely something that we get those applications from on a regular basis. I don't think we have any, I know that UBC doesn't have any articulated agreements with schools internationally. I do know that our prairie provinces, so Saskatchewan and Manitoba, do have some agreements with the states that are directly below them. But I think that's probably the closest that you're going to find in terms of joint partnerships or articulation agreements.
All right, so I am answering the question, how to select a college and what does best fit mean? The best way to kind of think about best fit has everything to do with self-reflection. So you just want to ask yourself a few questions here. You really want to stay away from thinking, okay, I'm 11th grade going to 12th grade. Okay, college is next. Don't go through the motions with this. This is one of the greatest opportunities for us who have gone through our undergraduate years. They say, and I can confirm, it's some of the best years of your young adult life. So you definitely want to have some self-reflection with this. So ask yourself a few questions. These are some of the questions that I asked myself during the process. What is it that I want to experience over these next few years? What is it that I want to do? What kind of impact do I want to have? And what is my learning style? This is one of the big ones. What is my learning style? I know for me, my learning style was, I want to be able to raise my hand, ask the professor a question. I want them to know that I traditionally sit in the front row to the left, even though there's no assigned seats in college. Everyone has their seats, their sections. I wanted that personal interaction. So for me, I had to look for a school that was mid-sized to smaller. If you're a student who has to have that personal connection, you may want to stay away from a university that has large lecture halls that host, 100, 200 students per class. That may not be your fit. But on the opposite side, that may be your fit if you're that type of student. So you want to look into those things, not necessarily just looking into, I love the university and I love their football team. And then there was no research on academics, no research on the environment, none of that. Okay, so you want to ask yourself those questions. You also want to be able to ask yourself the question about location. What is important to me? Do I need to get away from my home environment? Can I be in a place where, maybe my university is the center of the town, and that's what I need in an more so isolated situation. So you want to ask yourself those types of questions, because that all plays a role. I can let you know that you are not going to be in class all day. Even coming from our university president, he does not want us only just to go to class, go to the library, go back to our class. You are paying for the college experience. So what kind of experience is it that you're seeking to have? So you want to ask some of those questions. Also, if you're a first generation college student, thinking about going to a school that that has evidence of showing support for first gen students. If you're a first generation American, is that important to you? Are you thinking about a school that has cultural appreciation? Maybe you didn't experience that much in high school, but that is available. So you want to ask those questions, self-reflection, okay? One of the other questions that I was asked is it really important to attend a name brand school, more like a flagship school? And, will I have opportunities if I don't attend a school like that for job placement? And I want to let you know from a real world experience, you will absolutely have opportunities for job placement. One of my other roles on campus is hiring people within the university. And with that, when I tell you, there are literally people from Ivy Leagues, from private schools, large schools, community colleges. Everyone is there. There is, on paper, you may look identical to your peer, but the thing that is going to separate you always is the uniqueness that you're bringing to the table. Okay, where there's so many people, so many college students that are getting educated. We're all going after some of the same jobs, but ask yourself in college, with them having the right mindset, what am I doing during these years in college to prepare myself to launch? Obviously, the schools, universities are there. They have the resources. They have what's needed for success. We've been proven to do that, right? But what am I, the personal accountability, doing to prepare myself to launch? Am I developing myself while in college to develop those characteristics needed to be of excellence within my profession? If you're a student who says, oh, I want to teach, that's great. But I ask basic questions. One, do you like the age group that you're interested in teaching? Do you have patience for them? If you know that you don't, we need to start developing patience if you know that that's the one thing that you want to do. So you're thinking about also schools that have the clubs, the organizations that are going to help you develop personally, socially. You want that holistic development so that you can be prepared, as my university president says, to dance on the world stage. There is another question. How many schools should I apply to? You definitely want to apply, do the research. You definitely want to apply to the schools that are having some of the basic needs that are being met. One is having your area of a major that's there, especially if you're a student who needs some type of aid, that they are able to offer aid. But there's so much more that's involved. So if you have the opportunity, apply to your public schools, your in-state schools. Of course, there's money within your states, but then also take some applications and apply to some out-of-state schools. Apply to some schools that that you'll have a great chance of getting in, and then also challenge yourself and apply to some of the other schools as well. Okay. One of the other questions that I have is, what's the best way to research and explore colleges during this pandemic? We miss you as admissions representatives. We miss that human interaction through college fairs, high school visits, but we've done as much as we possibly can do to open up this virtual space. So you want to definitely make sure that you are still participating in the any type of virtual presentations. We are available, whether it's being able to have video calls, emails. You want to be in contact and still demonstrate your interest. One of the most important things, though, if you absolutely can do, majority of the schools have their virtual tour up. And it's a great opportunity to take the 360 views if you're not able to physically drive to the campus right now. Some of our campuses, like mine, our university is open, but our campus is closed. So we're not able to take on visitors. But have an amazing virtual tour opportunity that's available, and then also daily opportunities to speak with the mission representatives. So as much as possible, involve your parents and make sure that you're participating in the opportunities that are still being offered for those schools of interest that you have. One of the last questions on here that seems to be good to answer right now is for students who have IEPs, 504 plans, do you get some of the same accommodations in college, and how will that apply to you? The best thing that I can let you know is that do not wait. If you know that you fit into this category, do not wait until the first day of class or the first test that you have to take, and then all of a sudden you're informing your professors, you're informing those who are important to know that you have this IEP, that you have this 504 plan. There are universities, and particularly speaking of mine, that have separate departments, offices that are available and there for students. So you have to do those types of things before you even register for classes, before you take your first test. Please do not wait to the last moment. The last thing that I want to say about finding the right fit. Once again, this is about thinking about the future. You don't have to have it all together, but there is a seed that you have to bring to the table, okay? There is something that you have to bring to the table. I would say get beyond the basic questions that we're usually used to being asked of, do you have my major? Can you offer me money? We have the majors. Those are something you can see on our website. Universities offer financial assistance. Most importantly, it's important for you to, make sure that you're applying for external scholarships. But more importantly, we want you to be thinking steps ahead. How can the university help you get to where you need to go? That's how you want to think of it. If I go to this school, how is it going to help me develop and help me get to where I need to go? So you want to think about what is a couple of things that you would like to do, a couple of things you would like to experience, and does the school offer that? And that is some of my advice about finding the right college fit. The very last thing that I want to say, when it is the opportunity for you all to live on campus, or even if you are commuting, the best thing that you can do in order for you to have an overall best college experience is the involvement. If you're living on campus, when the opportunity comes, do not take your roommate for granted. Have those lunch dates, exchange phone numbers. That is your first friend that you will have. Also, get involved in organizations is going to be important. That's the extension of the classroom. That's where you get to be around other like-minded people. So those are some of the pieces of advice that I would give about finding the right college fit.
Great, that's wonderful advice. I agree with all of that. My topic here is, what do we need to know about the differences between admission plans? So there are a lot of terms out there that you're probably familiar with about admission plans. There's early action, early decision, priority decision, rolling admission, regular decision. So I'll break down some of those terms and then talk about in more detail early decision specifically, because I have a lot of questions about that. So for the most part, you can distinguish between some of these different plans in terms of timeline, but some of the plans also vary in terms of like the rules that govern that plan. So if you're thinking about early action, that essentially means like you are applying to this institution early. So the deadline is probably going to be sometime in November. So there's no restrictions on just regular early action. It's meaning it's not binding. So you can apply early action, then decide on your own if you're going to attend if you're admitted. If you are applying to a school that's restricted early action, it's asking you to not apply to any other schools through an early process. So you can apply to another school early action or early decision. Early decision is different from early action only in the sense that early decision is a binding process. So early decision means that if you are admitted to that school, you have signed an agreement that says that you'll withdraw your applications from all other colleges you've applied to, and you'll be attending that institution. So early decision is really the choice that you want to make. If you are 100% sure that this school is your top choice and that you're willing to make that commitment and attend if you're admitted. So again, early decision really being a binding process with the school, and early action, both restricted and not restricted, it's really just a way for you to apply early. But the restricted early action means that you're not going to be able to apply to any other schools. Of course, early decision also also means you're not going to apply to any other schools early. And then there's other programs or plans like rolling admission. So rolling admission typically means, we'll continue to accept applicants for as long as we have space. It's usually a good idea to apply to these schools as soon as possible because you don't quite know when space is going to be filled. So the earlier, the better. And then regular decision is something that you're probably all familiar with, but it's the time when I'd say the vast majority of students apply to college. It's usually sometime in January or so, but that really varies from school to school. So keep an organized list of those deadlines for regular decision, just like you would with any other admission plan. And regular decision, it's not binding. It's really a chance for you to apply to as many schools as you want and to compare your options at the end of the day. So a lot of students, so my next kind of bit here is going to focus a lot on early decision because that's really where my questions are coming from. But a lot of people think that applying early decision increases the chance of getting in. You'll definitely see that there is a higher acceptance rate for most institutions that have an early decision option if you compare the early decision admission rates and the regular decision admission rates. With that said, you can probably talk to any admission counselor and they'll all tell you that you should not apply early decision unless you're absolutely confident in the school that you're applying to. So I mentioned earlier, it's a binding agreement. You'll find that, sometimes students approach their college search process thinking, well, I absolutely have to apply early decision somewhere. So I'm gonna look for the school that's gonna be my ED school. That's kind of the backwards approach to what you should be taking. If you get started early and you happen to come across a school that you think checks off all your boxes and that you're really excited about and you're passionate about, and you think, yeah, this is the school, then I would say apply early decision. But don't go into the process thinking I'm definitely going to apply early decision because you may be making a decision that you're not quite confident in. Another thing to keep in mind too is that the vast majority of applicants, just in terms of raw numbers, they apply regular decision and they're admitted at a higher number in terms of raw numbers and regular decision. So we know that not all students are going to come to our institutions in the regular decision process. You're going to have a lot of different options. And so, even though at Haverford, we're a class of 350 students each year that we're trying to bring in, we're going to admit way more than 350 students in regular decision because we know you're going to have other choices. So don't get kind of bogged down in terms of that admission acceptance rate as like a driving force for why you should apply ED. Apply ED somewhere because you're excited about the school, not because you think you have to apply ED. I once heard an admission counselor at a fair tell a student who was thinking she had to apply ED somewhere, you wouldn't tell me that you're going to get married on November 15th, but have no idea who you're getting married to. So make sure that you're being thoughtful about the ED process, not doing it just because it's trendy or something you need to do. I also received a couple of questions about kind of the early decision agreement. So if you were to apply early decision to a school, you and your counselor and your parents or parent would have to sign a form that says, I understand the binding conditions of an early decision application and that I'll withdraw my application from other schools if I'm admitted. And the reason that we do this is just so that you know exactly what early decision's all about. We definitely do make exceptions. I'd say most schools do make exceptions for financial aid. So in the event that you apply early decision, you're admitted, and you find out that it's not affordable, we can release you from that early decision contract. In the past decade or so, we've never really had that many cases because we expect that you are doing your research through all the wonderful online calculators that institutions are required to have to get a sense of whether or not it's an affordable place. So definitely do your research first because that can really help save you a lot of time. And if Haverford's not the best fit for you financially, we'd want you to be able to go to another school early decision or regular decision that's more affordable. And some students have asked, what if I don't withdraw my other applications when I've been accepted in early decision? Well, if we find out, we're going to assume that you're no longer coming to Haverford, but also it really is going to poorly reflect on your school. So if we find out that that happened, we're going to wonder if all the students at Bethesda Chevy Chase are actually interested in this contract, and it can really hurt your peers down the road too. So I would strongly recommend that you stay true to your word. We really value the student's word. We don't have a deposit at all. So you sign a document that says I've withdrawn my other applications and that I'm coming to Haverford in the fall. And every year we have 360 students who show up and do that. But we're really expecting that you're staying to that contract. And if we find out that you have broken it, then it's likely that you probably don't know the values of our community and that you probably aren't a good fit for Haverford. And I'm sure my colleagues would probably say the same. Trying to see if there's anything else that I would add. Some people ask about early decision one versus two. It's really just a difference in timeline. So we have two options. If you don't quite know if you're ready to apply early decision one, you can apply about a month later early decision two, and that's going to be the case for any college that you're thinking about. So I know I'm short on time, so I'll leave that there. But if you have more questions in the Q&A about plans, we can talk about it.
All right, my topic is talking about essays, which I know causes a lot of concern for students in their senior year about the essay. We love on the admissions side for colleges that require essays to read. We love reading those. They're an opportunity for you to speak directly to the admissions officer. And I think sometimes students are concerned because by the time they get to their senior year, their grades, maybe if schools are requiring or are test optional, like they may have already tested, or the rest of their application is kind of set. And so they do place a lot of weight in the essay. I will say that essays are never a make or break thing for us on our side. It helps kind of add color to the application and is you speaking directly to us. But I've never read an essay and said, this is the reason why I'm admitting a student, or this is the reason why the student is denied. Maybe there's been some questionable things that students have said that have made us question if they're a good fit for our community. That's a different story. But I think you should relax when you're writing the essay. You want to take some time. Essays take a while to pull together. This is not something you could do the night before the deadline. And we want to get to know you. We want some personality. I think sometimes students think that essays shouldn't have any personality, and they absolutely should. Sometimes we read essays that seem very stale. Maybe they've been overworked or overcoached, or some parents have gotten their hands in there, and it doesn't feel like a 17-year-old student. It doesn't feel like the student that we've been reviewing through the process. Parents, you should not be editing your student's essay. Students, you should feel comfortable putting your personality into the essay. I typically don't give topics to stay clear of when it comes to essays. I will say a few things though. Sometimes I think students try to go for the shock factor to try to catch our attention. And sometimes that doesn't work if you're using, I don't know, like a curse word or saying something that's going to knock us off of our chair. You don't want to be memorable for bad reasons, right? So make sure you stay clear of that. And humor can be tough. So it's very hard to have humor come across in an essay. If you're funny, you could be funny, you could put that personality, but if you're not funny, don't try to be funny because it's going to come off really awkward and maybe off-putting depending on who's reading that. I also will say that incidences that are deeply impactful to a student are really personal. I always put a word of caution out because sometimes students spend a lot of time explaining that incident in great detail, but they don't really talk too much about how that impacted them or changed the way they think, or that reflective piece that we're looking for. A lot of it is kind of focused in on the incident or the person. So just make sure as you're talking about different topics, the essay does kind of revolve around yourself. That's a lot about the personal essay. Some colleges will require a supplemental essay. They're specific to the college. It should include some detail, as Aries was saying. You want to do your research, and that research should come through in these supplemental essays. We may ask you, why are you interested in us? And if you've done the things that that Aries is talking about and done a good job in researching a college, it should be easy for you to put those together. The last thing I'll say about essays, we actually have a website called Essays That Work that we update each year with essays that we really enjoy. And you can go back and look through the catalog of essays. So If you're looking for some inspiration, again, we vote on those essays and I have pretty much memorized all those essays. So don't copy those essays and submit them because I'll know. But if you're just trying to get a sense of what we're looking for, you know, everyday students get into college, your essay doesn't have to be you curing cancer or curing COVID or saving a small child from a burning building to get into college. It doesn't have to be this over the top thing. We just want to know about who you are, one moment in time, and some reflection about that to get a sense of you know, what type of person you're going to be. We're looking for classmates and roommates and teammates as we're thinking about enrolling that learning community. And with that, I'll leave it there and pass it over to Lizzie.
Thanks, Calvin. And I know Calvin did such a great job of sort of touching on some of the, sorry, my dog is sneezing in the background if you can hear that weird noise. Calvin did a great job earlier of sort of touching on different application requirements and what people are generally what colleges are generally looking for in an application. So I'll keep this pretty brief. I'm just going to discuss kind of like the application process, the application review, what we're looking for from the college side, so you can sort of have that information when you're submitting your application. So one question that we get a lot from students is about GPA recalculation, and the most frequent and I'm sure annoying answer to receive from the question asking end is that it really depends on the school. So some schools will recalculate GPAs and give weight to honors, AP, IB, dual enrollment classes, courses that we've decided have sort of an additional level of rigor and should carry a little bit more weight. Other schools will not recalculate your GPA. They'll take the GPA that's been sort of reported to them, and have everyone have sort of an equal playing field on that front. So it sort of depends from school to school. And that's a very fair question to be asking of schools is, do you recalculate GPAs? And as students coming from BCC, where you have a lot of AP and IB and honors level coursework, that's a good question to be knowing the answer to, because your GPA probably looks pretty different unweighted versus weighted if you're taking some of those higher level courses. So important for you to kind of know, especially when colleges report out their middle 50% and say, we normally accept students with a GPA between this range. Like, where does your GPA fall in that range? Is that a weighted conversation or an unweighted conversation? So a good sort of question to be asking of schools to get a better idea of how they look at GPA from their end of the process. Recommendations and sort of how much weight do those carry in the process. Again, sort of depends on the school and what the evaluation process looks like at each individual school, but many schools conduct what Calvin mentioned earlier. It's called a holistic review, where we're really looking at every single item that you provide for us as part of your evaluation, with the exception of UBC, where you should not send recommendations. They don't want to read them. There you go, shout out for you, Jake. But most other schools, especially US universities, will ask for some sort of recommendation, either from a counselor or a teacher. And so important to be asking sort of what those requirements are. And those recommendations help give us a really good idea of what you are like as a student and as a person and as sort of an individual in your community, sort of what that looks like. And I really like to encourage students to talk to their teachers and sort of let them know what it is that they'd really like for their teacher or their counselor to be calling out in those recommendations, because I know it can feel like you don't have much of a say in what your teacher or what your counselor is saying in those recommendations, but your teacher and counselor are writing a lot of letters of recommendation. And so any input that you want to give them and say, you know, you were my physics teacher, and I'd really appreciate if you called out the time that I didn't do that well on a test, but I came in and met with you a lot, and I thought that that demonstrated my tenacity. So if you could call that out, that would be great. I know recommenders really appreciate that too. So again, a sort of opportunity in this process to give you a little bit more of a voice and say, and encourage you. I know it's scary to ask for that from a recommender, but give them a little bit more information about what you would love for them to sort of be speaking about in their recommendation letter. Then the last thing I'll talk about, which I get questions about all the time, sort of like the perennial question of, is it better to be taking harder courses and not doing quite as well because you're challenging yourself versus taking an easier course load but doing super, super well? And again, it depends. I don't want to speak for all my colleagues, but I think generally I've been in these panels for years and heard this question so many times, and the answer is almost always that it's really great to see academic rigor. It's great to see that you've challenged yourself because it shows that you are ready to take on the challenges of college level coursework, which you're also prepared to do, but is definitely just more challenging than high school. So showing that you are willing and excited to do those more challenging courses in high school, even if that means that you're getting a grade that's not quite as high as if you were in an easier class, always is really a good sign for us because it shows that you are, mentally, physically, emotionally prepared to take on the demands of college coursework after high school. And with that, I'll pass it over to Brett.
Thanks, Lizzie. And this is the end of the line, I guess, here. So my topic is numbers and dollars. And so the first thing to talk about first is what is enrollment management? So enrollment management really quickly is the combination of not just admission, but the recruitment of students, the financial aid and scholarship awarding, freshman year all the way through senior year, other retention initiatives beyond financial aid that go into. So that full combination is what we call enrollment management. There's some other elements that are in there too. The next question here is, what do students and families need to realize to understand why another student with lower scores in GPA get into a school, but their child doesn't? So I'm going to answer this from a large research university perspective, maybe less of a holistic view that comes through. So you just have to, realize, and we daily, I talk about this with families as well, is that a lot of schools, not all, a lot are reviewing based on the academic area. So if you're applying to business, you're competing against other business students. If you're applying to engineering, you're competing against other engineering students. If you're applying to education, you're competing against education, et cetera. And so the levels and the criteria for admission will vary based on the academic area that you do select at some schools. Once again, check in with the schools you're applying to. They will all have a different policy. Do they have a general admissions policy, or do they have it based on different academic areas? That comes through too. What are some of the meaningful statistics when choosing a college university, and what do they mean? Freshman retention rate just basically means students that have completed the freshman year and they've stepped foot in class the first day of the sophomore year. That is a retained student. And so you'll hear a school that has a 93% retention rate. And so that means 93% of students started the sophomore year. Percent of years guaranteeing housing, the number of years. And so basically that is just an indicator of the kind of housing we have, a place. So, at Penn State, we actually only guarantee 1 year that comes through, because we're kind of similar to UBC. It sounds like we have 45,000 students, but we only have 13,000 spots on campus. And so a lot of other people are, by their own choice, are getting townhouses and apartments and all those kind of things when you're in college as well. The percent of financial need met. So this is a number of, let's say that you are able to spend $10,000. The school costs $20,000. So your unmet need is 50%, and so forth that comes through. So that is kind of quick definition of a percentage of need met that comes through. And then also the average debt upon graduation is something to look at as well, because this tells you typically in a federal loan kind of package, how much money you're going to be on average from that school you will still have in debt. So there are kind of federal figures that we do keep out there that'll tell you what they are. So briefly touch on the FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. So this is the federal form to apply for student aid in the United States. And anybody that holds I believe a green card or has US citizenship can use the FAFSA. And it is not a required document, but I would say it's required if you want federal aid, but it's not required by universities necessarily. And then the CSS profile is something put out by the College Board. Those are the folks who put out the SAT, and it's used in scholarship selection at some schools, not all. Penn State does not use it. It comes through. So check with your schools if they are using a CSS profile in their scholarship awarding process. And there's a few scholarships themselves that are out there that are private that might use this as well too. Like I said, neither are required, but if you're looking for aid, it's a pretty good idea to be looking at these items as well too. And then I know there's a million tips out there, but my one tip, are there any strategies or tips to maximize financial aid and reduce the college costs? Apply in your portfolio of schools that you're applying to. Make sure you have some schools that you're applying to where you're in the upper quarter of their profile, as far as their test scores, if you're using test scores as far as their grades, or top 10%. Make sure you're one of the top tier students that school is looking at. That is one way to kind of not guarantee money, but you're going to be more likely to hit money if you're one of the top students at that school too. I know we're all trying to reach for a great school that we want to go to, but if you just get in somewhere, you're unlikely to get a great aid package and scholarship package. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. Okay, so we are running over a little bit, so I don't want to take up too much more time. However, I know that many of you do have questions, so I just want to really briefly talk about the college admissions during COVID. Many of your questions are being answered in the chat, and after this slide, I'm going to share with you the panelists' emails. I hope they don't mind, but they're here to help you. So, if your questions were not answered tonight, please reach out to me or to these admissions reps, and I know that they will get back to you when they can. So I just don't want this event to go on too long. This is just, for those of you who are new to this process, this is just sort of the first, opportunity for you to investigate these schools. These reps visit us. Right now they're doing it virtually, so you will have many chances to get your questions answered. But right now, what I would just like to do quickly is, we don't necessarily have to answer all these questions, but many of these students want to know about test optional, because the juniors were bumped out in Montgomery County from taking the SAT and ACT scores because so many seniors were not able to take it. So they may not be able to take it, in time to get these scores into you for next year. So has there been any decision made for the class of 22 about SAT or ACT scores? And any of you can, if anybody wants to just jump in and just quickly give us a take. Most, a lot of you are going to have the same answer. Brett, you want to go ahead? I'll pick on you.
Yeah, so at Penn State, I'll give you behind the scenes information here. So we in the admissions office have put in a petition to our faculty senate that we continue test optional for the next 2 years. But the faculty senate must vote on that. And we expect that decision to possibly come by the end of the month, if not in February. So it's one of those things that, it's kind of a dynamic situation right this moment. And we hope for at least 2 years we'll have that on board. That's what we wanted admissions, but we've got to make sure the faculty are on board too.
Thank you. Anybody else want to jump in? If anybody has a different answer, then go ahead and jump in. If not, then we'll sort of assume that it's similar.
I can jump in, Kate.
Thank you.
Northeastern is test optional for this year, and we have gotten approval to do test optional again for next year. So we will be test optional for the next incoming class as well. And just to sort of answer the second question that you have here, will it hurt your chances not to submit them? No, it will not. And going through this process right now, I can talk about insider information. My takeaway from this whole process thus far is that it's really, really, it's good to do your research, and to sort of Brett's point, where you want to be submitting applications to schools where you feel like you will confidently get in, so you can sort of get a little bit more financial aid. It does not hurt you not to have a test score. Test scores, when it is test optional, it's very helpful to your application if your test score is falling within a school's sort of typically accepted range. So I would say it's really good to do your research. That's not to say that students with test scores outside of range do not get in. It happens all the time. But I think in this test optional world, where we understand there's so many reasons why you weren't able to take a test at all, or maybe not many times, you weren't able to do the preparation. There's a lot of reasons why you may not have gotten the score that you wanted. And so it's a nice sort of level of flexibility, and it doesn't hurt you for not having it. And so I would say take advantage of that. If you don't have a score that you are excited about, especially for a specific school, this is a good time to be sort of leaning into that test optional nature.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right, so we are going to quickly move. All right, so if you all want to take a picture of this slide, Oh, I changed this. I apologize. I don't know why. Ms. Reed, I don't know why this is showing up because I did change this slide. So I apologize. I will send an updated contact information to all of you who have attended with the contact person at Morgan State. I'll use the emails you used to register and I'll send that to you tomorrow. So I did change this slide on my other computer, but for some reason it didn't update here. And as I said at the beginning, this presentation has been recorded. So if any of you, missed anything or want to review it again, it will be posted to the College and Career Center site, as well as possibly the College Advisory Committee's site. And please reach out to me. Again, my email is right at the top of the screen. I'm here to help. I can direct you to the right person. I'm very resourceful. So if I don't have the correct answer for you, or if any of these reps don't have the answer, I will find the answer for you. So I want to, everybody give a big round of applause and a thank you to all of our panelists tonight. We greatly appreciate your being here. We know it's a late evening for you. Thank you to all of our attendees, our parents, our students. And I do look forward to working with you in the future. So thank you so much for being here, and we will see you all soon. Thank you. Stay healthy and safe.
And thank you, Ms. Heald, for all of your efforts.
Thank you very much. Good night, everybody.
You.